So I think one of the hardest parts of dealing with tinnitus is that moment when you wake up at night and you hear it and you start to fear it. And the reason why that fear is so damaging is because it sort of stays with you into the next day. And that fear becomes anxiety, the anxiety of not wanting it to get louder, the anxiety of how am I going to deal with this noise. So that moment when you wake up in the night is so important because it has a knock-on effect. And I just wanted to talk briefly about how I deal with that and how I think that dealing with that helps me just deal with tinnitus overall in general. So the anxiety that we get in the middle of the night is like a bully. And the reality is, like all bullies in life, the only way to deal with bullies is to stand up to it. It's one of life's little logics that you cannot deal with the bully any other way other than standing up to it. So how do we stand up to this bully that's waking us up in the middle of the night? Well, like all fear, the only way to deal with this, or the only way to deal with anxiety, is to let the fear in. Now, in all my other videos, I talk about distractions, comfort tools, doing things you like, all of which I fully believe in 100% because I do it every day. But there are times when we have to do the exact opposite, when we have to let the fear in because it's the only way to deal with it. So what I mean is this: when I wake up in the middle of the night, and what my natural reaction is to try and distract my mind, put the TV on, think of other things, think of anything other than my tinnitus. And sometimes I feel like it's time to do like a little reset and to let the fear in, open the door and face my fear. And that is the loudness of my tinnitus. Specifically these last 6 months, it's definitely been getting louder. So how do I do that? Well, instead of distracting my mind like I always do, I focus 100% on the noise. And the effect is quite interesting actually, because the second that I focus on the noise, as you probably have experienced yourself, it gets louder straight away. It very interestingly, it just gets louder, like within a second. And our natural reaction, just like we're going in when we're stepping into very cold water. I live in Norway and we have fjords. And if you go in the fjord, anytime after September, October, you're going to get a shock. And I've done it, and it's quite a nice experience actually. But your body goes into shock and you start to take those deep breaths, Well, it's something similar to when you let the fear of the tinnitus in, because we naturally block it out. That's just a natural defense mechanism. But when you actively and purposely let it in, your body sort of, it's like, oh my God, it's really loud. And I do this every now and again because I've got to face my fear. It's healthy for me to face this fear. And I'll explain why in a minute. But so what I do is I focus on it. It gets louder, and I focus on how interesting it is that it gets loud. My focus is 100% now on my tinnitus. I make sure to take deep breaths as I'm doing it. So I'm listening to it, and it's very quiet. Remember, it's pitch dark, it's quiet, and all I can hear is my breath. And the tinnitus, of course. And I listen to it, and I start to focus on the quality of it. I start to focus on where it is in my mind. It starts at the back of my head, and the more I focus on it, it seems in my mind to travel and fill my whole mind up. And I let it happen. I let it happen because I'm letting the fear in. And I start to notice all the small details that I don't normally notice because I'm normally subconsciously blocking it out. But here's the thing, I don't allow emotion to take over, even though my body is, I'm breathing and I'm like, oh my God, this is so loud. I'm amazed at how my body can produce this incredibly loud noise. And of course, like I say, it's getting louder as I focus on it. And I focus on the quality. I let it fill my mind, and then it seems to almost take over my body. And I stay there for a while. And I sort of meditate on it a little bit. You've probably heard in the past, make friends with your tinnitus, learn to love your tinnitus. And you think, well, how can I make friends with my tinnitus? What am I supposed to do? Send it a postcard, invite it around for a cup of tea and a bit of cake? How do you make friends with your tinnitus? I think a better way of saying that, or what I try and suggest is to emotionally detach yourself from your tinnitus. And this is one way of doing it, because fear is the biggest emotion that we attach to it. So by letting the fear in, I'm letting it take over my body. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to take a good look at what's actually going on. It allows me to take a good look at the actual tinnitus. And it allows me to look it in the eye and say, you're not as scary as, you like to think you are, as all bullies, as is the case with all bullies. And what that does is it allows me to relax my shoulders, keep breathing, and the fear just sort of fades away, because it's almost like a novelty. It's almost like a chewing gum. It's lost its flavor. Because I say, well, if this is what I'm scared of, then it ain't that scary. And you just stay there for a while, and I meditate on it. I actually learn to engage with the tinnitus, but not on an emotional level, not on a level of fear or upset. I just listen to it. And I don't make friends with it, but I just think you're not as scary as you like to think you are. And it takes over my whole body, and the more I meditate on that, I just gently fall asleep to it. Because subconsciously the fear is leaving my body. And the reason why this is powerful, and like I said at the start, the reason why this is powerful is because it has a knock-on effect. It can have a knock-on effect in an adverse way or a good way. When you wake up, you fear it, you're worried about it, oh my God, is this terrible, it's getting louder, is it louder? Did I notice another tone? Then it has a knock-on effect, excuse me, for the next day. You wake up with anxiety, your shoulders are up, stress, you're stressing out about this noise, that noise, you're stressing out about life in general. You see how it has a subconscious knock-on effect, whereas when you let the fear come in and when you face the fear, the next day you hear it and you go, oh, it's not that scary, I dealt with it last night. As with all bullies, all of a sudden, the facade of fear and the facade of that they can have any power over you, it just disappears, it evaporates. So you wake up the next day and you hear it and you go, yeah, I've already dealt with that. I've got other stuff to deal with now. I got, breakfast, work, Fluffy, my dog. I got, It's like I got other stuff to deal with now. So it has a knock-on effect in a good way, I think. But it's very hard to do. It's not easy to do because, like I say, our natural reaction is to push it away. We don't want that fear. Rightly so. Fear is an emotion that's built in to protect us. But it can also lead to anxiety, and that's why sometimes you've got to let it in. You've got to let that fear in, and you've got to be strong enough to deal with it and take a good look at what you're actually scared of. So I actually did it last night because over the last 6 months, my tinnitus has increased in volume. My emotion hasn't increased. I'm still cool with it. I'm still very calm about the whole thing, which is what I always talk about in my other videos. Don't engage emotionally with it, but it has increased. And so you let the fear in, because no matter how many times you share advice, no matter how many, I'm human. I have emotion. Just because I give advice, I write books, doesn't mean that I am not in some way affected temporarily by my tinnitus increasing in volume, because that would be a lie, and I don't do that. So last night I listened to it and I was like, wow, this is loud. This is so loud. And I let the fear in, I let it all in, and I let it take over my mind, take over my body, just like I say, and I took a good look at it. I analyzed it, the tone, where it was in my mind. And this morning I feel better for it. This morning I feel like, yeah, so what? And I'm carrying on about my day. These things are important, I think. Like I say in my other videos, I think tinnitus is 50% physical, 50% mental. We can't do anything about the physical right now in 2024. They're working on it, but we can't do anything about the physical right now. But what we can do is we can work on the mental, because that's within our realm. We have the strength and we have the possibility to work on our realm. We can work on how we react to that. And I think that's important. And I just wanted to share it with you. I hope it's not been too long. It's going on a little bit long now, so I'm going to stop it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one.